do it in a more informal way and see, you know, if we can, by educating pilots, can get the safety higher. And at the civil, we concluded the second solution would be better, because this way we are not chasing the pilots away from measuring. We would actually get them to join and cooperate. And at the Europeans this year, this was done on a bigger scale the first time. In Big Spring, it was more like trying on a few volunteers to see how it can be measured, if it can be measured. And back then it was basically flip doing with my little device, like a few pilots that asked for it. At the Europeans, Dennis Pagan measured all the gliders during the comp, and it turned out it was difficult enough to do. You know, 100 pilots means 100 gliders, and if you would do it on the scale that the Germans asked for, it would be every day 100 pilots, and then you realize you can't do it. But during the whole course, during the whole meet, 10 days, we had about 100 pilots. That was doable, and the results were quite interesting. You know, one of the results was most pilots don't really know where they stand. You know, means they've heard about Sprog angle measurements, they know what washout is in principle, but then if you ask them what is your setup, what is your washout distribution, they wouldn't know. Then there's, I would say, about 20 guys that had a better clue, but they would only know how many degrees they have. It doesn't, they wouldn't know how much pitch that is. And to be honest, that is also the case in the DHV. You know, they would like to measure gliders, but when you ask them how much pitch is it compared to the testing limits, they would have to pass, because we have never done this measurement. You know, so there was never ever a test at the German testing site where we would go and say, okay, so many degrees is the limit, half of those degrees is 50% of the limit or whatever, and this many degrees is zero. And the reason, and that is the reason why we still struggle a little bit, and probably why we still have accidents, and why we still have gliders that are set up way below what they should be. We need to understand what we have to measure. You know, washout is a term that everybody understands. You know, those gliders fly because they need a certain twist in the wing, and it's like a negative twist. So the outer wing has to be on a more negative angle of attack than the root of the glider. That's how swept flex wing gets its stability on a straight flight. Now, how much washout is that? This is already hard to answer, because the whole safety is a package of washout angle, sweep, profile moment, means how much camber you have in your profiles, and other effects like how stiff your dive sticks are, how elastic the whole frame is, how much your undersurface can come out or stay firm, you know. And the whole package is basically tested and measured on a test rig, you know. And the reason why you need that test rig is because it is a package of about 5-6 of those variables. And if it was only to measure Sprogs, we wouldn't need a test count. You know, the direct reason why that testing, and it is actually costly for manufacturers, and it's quite some work, and you have to put a lot of effort into it. But you can't go without the testing rig, because the subject of pitch stability is quite complex. So why do we try to just measure one figure and say that makes safe gliders? The idea comes from that you say, if you have measured a certain glider, then and then you also know what these angles on the Sprogs have to be, then you could say, if on the field you measure those same angles again, you should be okay. This assumes that you haven't changed anything else, you know. Easiest other way to change would be that you change your profiles. So you can fly the safe setup, but you have a more cambered profile on all your sections, you could still have very light pitch. You know, everybody will understand that. Another way to trick that procedure would be to come up with bigger cloth ribs. That means the sail can blow up more or breathe more, you know. Or you had more flexible dive sticks, you had more or less flexible buttons. That will all add to the equation and make it difficult to say that glider is safe because it had been tested with the same Sprog angles on a car. So you should not expect too much from saying I'm safe, because they measured 7 and 8 degrees on my Sprogs and I got 7 and 8. You have to see there's quite a big tolerance, but the most important thing in measuring all these angles is that the pilots get to feel what is reasonable and what is beyond usability. When we say washout, we instantly think of this device and how you put it to the dive stick, and first you steer it against the keel. It would work like that. You could have this level. If you do it really accurately, the CIVL has a little post here, so they put that keel straight, but it wouldn't have to be. You could also do it like that and measure the keel first, and you note down this angle. If you had it all level, that would be 0. So you put the keel on 0, and now, preferably on full VG, which is the lowest washout angle that you can have, means that is the lowest margin that you should measure against. And then you do measurements on the on the dive stick. Means you go here basically and get this angle. Now everybody that knows about aerodynamics instantly will say this is not exactly washout. You're right, because measuring the stick is not what the aerodynamic washout angle is. You would have to measure the center of this line, which is easy to guess, against the center of the leading edge. You know, that would be really your washout angle. And so when you measure the dive stick, usually you end up with a little more than that. Saying you needed 5 degrees, you measure 5.5, means you actually a little lower than 5.5. But as I said before, it is more a reference. It is more to say the tested glider was also measured, of course, on the dive sticks. And if the tested glider had 5 degrees on that certain dive stick, then 5 degrees will be good for you. And in saying that, you also need to see that not every manufacturer has the same dive stick arrangement. Some of those dive sticks have a little different angle against the keel in this way. They swing a little more out, you know. Such a dive stick, of course, reads a little less, you know. The more you're perpendicular to the keel, the steeper it really is, you know. That also brings a little problem into it. What if the glider doesn't stand straight? You know, what if the glider is on a slope? You will instantly measure your dive sticks in a different way. We had some of that at the Europeans, where they constantly measure left and right, and you could see, oh, it's 6.5 on this side, it's only 6 on that side. What am I going to do? Do I have to adjust my dive sticks, or should we better adjust the level? So you could see that CIVL was actually learning probably a lot too, in terms of how hard it is to give this a sharp number and say you have 6.2 degrees, but you're only allowed